Hey, welcome to Cheaper Jeeper TV. On this week's episode, we're going to work on the belly band portion of our restoration of our Trillium trailer, so stick around. Okay, and this weekend we're going to talk about finishing off the belly band so that it'll never leak again. Just interestingly, the belly band was already coming off the trailer without me having to do anything because the rivets appear to have been busted right here. But as I got around the corner, all the rivets were in place. So what I'm going to have to do is pull out all of the rubber belly band material, drill out the rivets, and then remove the aluminum belly band piece right here. And then you can see this is what I have to deal with. I have to seal up this gap right here. So these rivets were already broken, so this just peeled off by itself. You can see how the plates in there are all rusted, and even some of the fiberglass has bulged out because of the swelling of the rusted plates there. That's why we got to fix this. You can see, for example, right here that some rust is coming through past this aluminum rivet because the plate is made out of steel and it's rusting back there, and it's starting to come through here. And then here they have screws because this is where the dinette is secured to the side of the trailer, and there's a piece of plywood back there that they screwed into to help support the dinette. Just seeing that the fiberglass is bulging right here because of the rusting plates lets me know that this has to be repaired. And incidentally, it's this corner that has all the rotted flooring. So it could be that part of the belly band that made this wood wet. Either way, we're going to repair it all. So now what I'm going to do, where the rivets are still secure, is I'm just going to take a drill bit and drill all these out so that I can remove the rest of the belly band. So you can see all the other rivets were broken and I could pull the belly band away, but this one is still connected. So what I need to do is drill the head off the rivet so that I could peel the belly band off. So I'll probably do these two just to demonstrate. So now the head's gone and I should be able to pull that right away. Now I'll just do the next one. There you go. So I'll just do the rest of the trailer. There's only half of them that are attached. A lot of them are already rusted out. So I took this part of the band off, and it appears there's lots of caulking in here. They were probably trying to stop a leak, or who knows. But I'll continue now. Some caulking is just holding it up here. There we go. See some caulking in here inside the belly band where I guess they were trying to stop some leaking. So what I need to do now is cut these metal plates out of the belly band, because if they ever get wet they're going to swell like these ones here and then could create some leakage issues. So when I remove these, I'm going to completely seal this because the top is connected to the bottom through a layer of fiberglass on the interior. So this isn't going to be a structural issue, it's just going to be a seam that I'm going to seal up, and then I'll sand it smooth, and you'll just have just this nice ridge here, and I'll decide if I'm going to put any kind of trim or just leave it with the ridge, because I've seen it like that. It looks pretty nice. So let's have a look. That looks like interior fiberglass, so that's not bad. It's right to the surface. So all those plates I gotta cut out. This is a bit of a mess here. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do. I use a Job Max or an oscillating tool with a small cutting blade to cut around the shape of the metal plates. You could use a Dremel or any kind of rotary cutting tool that would do the same thing. The metal plates were corroded enough such that a pick or needle nose pliers could be used to pull them out. I intentionally made my cuts close to the plates and away from the raised shoulders of the belly band so I could use them as landmarks for sanding for later on. And so that's how you remove the metal plates. That's 3 down and a few more to go. So with my cutting tool in hand, I decided I would make all the cuts on one side. And then I would go back and pull out the plates. Okay, so now I've cut out all of the plates from the belly band. Using a Dremel tool with a grinding wheel on the end, I'm going to go and put a beveled edge on everything so that when I put the material in, it'll have an edge to bond to. Once I apply that, I'll be sanding over everything. Okay, so let's get started. I use the Dremel with a grinding wheel to help bring down the raised edges of the fiberglass and provide a beveled edge, but you could use other tools. For example, I use this grinding wheel as well. So here's what the beveled edge looks like for which the material can bond. Okay, now I know you see that the window is out, but I'm still just working on the belly band right now. I just had to remove this window to see what was happening here, because all the way around the trailer there were the metal plates that were holding in the belly band, except at the back, because all in here is a solid sheet of plywood that the dinette mounts to. However, I guess at the factory they just screwed in the belly band straight into the plywood, and maybe it didn't seal well or whatever, but there's a strip of the plywood all along here that rotted, but the rest of the plywood is solid. So what I'm going to do is insert some 1/2 inch plywood pieces in here, apply some PL glue so that the upper fiberglass will stick to it, because the lower fiberglass is still pretty solid. Then I'm going to spray in expandable foam to fill in the rest of the gaps. So I'm just going to get some PL construction adhesive just behind this piece here to stick to the plywood. It's wedged into here, so I can't even get glue in there. I can't even pull those pieces out now. So I'm just going to lift this lip and put some glue under here. And I don't have a big enough clamp to go around this, so I'm just going to put some screws in here into the wood to hold the fiberglass up against the wood with the PL construction adhesive in between, and that should hold it in place. And then when it's dry, I'll take the screws out, and then I'm going to have to kind of sand this down to make it as even as possible. Okay, let's get to it. So now these screws are going to hold these two sides even and glued against this piece of plywood. So once that's dried, I can remove the screws, and I'll be sanding this down a bit so that I could put some Bongo and some fiberglass to even it all out and make it a nice smooth surface. Now there are some gaps in here, but I'm going to fill them up with expanding foam, and once that's all expanded, I'll just sand off any excess, and that'll fill up the empty gaps. Okay, so before I start spraying foam inside here to fill in the void, I'm going to put some masking tape on the edge so that if any foam comes out, it'll just be stuck to the masking tape and it will just come off with the masking tape. Okay, so I've got this big gap filler expanding foam. If you use this, make sure you wear gloves, because if it gets on your hands, it's really hard to take off. And it's good to have protective eye gear. And my intention is to fill the gaps inside this space. I don't want to come in this way because the fiberglass closes up, and this is a spot where there's a piece of wood that goes in to hold the window frame. And so I don't want this space to be filled up with foam. So I'm going to spray it in here and let it expand and fill the space in there. Okay. So I'm watching it expand, and it's moving up a little bit and just filling a little bit of the gap up here, which I wanted. It doesn't seem to be getting up into this space, which I didn't want. So once this is all finished expanding, I'll remove the tape, I'll sand it smooth, and we'll continue working with the belly band. So let's start with the Bongo with the long stranded fiberglass to fill in the large gaps, and then we'll follow that with Bongo with short strand fiberglass just to fill in the rest. We're going to start with long strand fiberglass reinforced body filler, Bongo or Motormaster, whatever brand you like. And this is the filler, and then this is the hardener. And what they recommend is before you start, just squeeze this little tube around a little bit so you could help mix the ingredients, because they separate a little bit when they're sitting on the store shelf. So we'll just do that a little bit. And then you'll need a mixing surface. I just bought this. Other people will just put a piece of foil over a piece of wood, whatever you like. And then pretty much What I've seen people do is put about a 3-inch circle of material here, and then maybe about a quarter of a third way up the circle they run a bead of this hardener on it and mix it in so that it's one solid color, and then they apply it to their project. So let's take a look at what this stuff looks like. It's always good to have some paper towel and acetone in case you need to clean up. Okay, so if you can look inside there, it's like the filler material and long strands of fiberglass. It looks pretty yucky. It's gonna get, I guess I'll use this as my mixing stick. So it's really goopy. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of separation in this. So I think I'm just gonna mix it a little bit more. And then I'll be ready to start. Okay, so there's about a 3-inch circle, and then you take the hardener and you go about 25 to 30% up from the edge and just run a bead across it like this. And then you just mix it in. So it's a bit of a purple and blue color, and what you have to do is just keep turning it over onto itself until the two individual colors disappear and it's one uniform color. That lets you know that the filler material and the hardener are evenly mixed. I want to hurry up and get going with this, so I'll make sure I do a good job at mixing in the hardener with the filler material. So this is the long stranded fiberglass reinforced Bongo, and I'm going to use this to fill these holes right here, and then I'll be going back over it with the fine stranded reinforced Bongo to do the rest. So let's get started. Okay, so I mixed up a smaller batch with not as much hardener. Hopefully it goes on a little better. So I'm mixing up another batch, and I'll do this side. I know it looks messy, but just thinking that the belly band will be impervious to any leaks from now on just seems to make it all worthwhile. Okay, so now that's the long stranded fiberglass reinforced Bongo, and it was a mess to apply. Those long strands, they're all going to sand off before I put on the next coat, which is the short stranded fiberglass reinforced Bongo, and hopefully that's a little more pleasant. It used maybe a little over half a can, almost 3/4 of a can to do all of the belly band holes. Okay, time to clean up. The product says it could be sanded after 20 minutes, but I didn't get to it till the next day. I used my oscillating tool with a sanding attachment. Other types of sanding tools will also do. And it didn't take too much for it to start looking a lot better. And now I switched it up to a flap wheel.
Throughout the project, I used different types of sanders to see which worked best in the different circumstances. Well, as I round the corner and I'm almost finished sanding the first coat of the long-stranded fiberglass reinforced body filler, I'm thinking it's turning out pretty well, but before I get started on the next coat, I want to make sure I address the back of the trailer. With the construction adhesive dried, I now put a beveled edge on the gap at the back of the trailer. I make sure to give the surface a nice sanding because I want to put some epoxy and fiberglass to cover this gap, and the rough surface will allow it to adhere well. I make sure to wipe off the surface of any dust, and I use acetone to make sure it's nice and clean. In this application, I use the West System 105 epoxy resin with their 206 slow cure hardener. With the epoxy resin and the hardener mixed, I apply it to the surface of the trailer using a brush. I then apply a swath of pre-cut fiberglass to the epoxy stuck onto the trailer. With the epoxy on the trailer, it's very easy to stick the fiberglass on. With the remainder of the epoxy, I apply it on top of the fiberglass, making sure to soak it into the fiberglass cloth and get rid of any air pockets or folds in the fiberglass. It was actually very easy to do this, and it went on nice and smooth. And upon closer inspection, I have to admit it turned out pretty nice.
Okay, so I've got the fiberglass on that back part of the belly band because it was constructed differently, and I thought that the fiberglass would hold those pieces together, whereas the rest of the belly band that had the steel plates, there was no movement at all, so I wasn't worried about the Bongo cracking as much as I was worried about the back. So that's why I used fiberglass there. In retrospect, I should have maybe just did fiberglass for the whole thing, but here we are. So now I'm going to show you the Bongo that's reinforced with the short strands of fiberglass. It's kind of got this green consistency. It's a little bit smoother, thankfully, than the long stranded reinforced Bongo. So I'll put about a 3-inch dollop on my plate and the same amount of hardener like I did last time, and we'll get started. And I'm going to try to spread it a little more smoothly now because it is a smoother product. So let's get started. And I'm going to use this little spatula here. Well, that went on a lot easier than the first coat. So I'm pretty happy with how that's proceeding, so I'll keep going. Okay, so now that I've got the second coat of the Bongo on, I'm just now going to go around the whole belly band and sand off all of the product and try to make it nice as smooth as possible. It's going to involve a lot of sanding, so other than your tool, your sander, it's good to make sure that you have some respiratory protection, some ear protection, and eye protection, because we're going to be sanding in the middle of a lot of dust for a little while. Okay, let's get started.
I'm certainly starting to see the rewards for my efforts as I round the corner and I'm able to sand around the back of the trailer as well with my epoxy resin fiberglass fix, but in no time at all I'll be finished with the sanding of the second coat.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a final coat, this time just plain Bondo. I'm gonna put a thin coat, give it a sanding, and if I still see any dimples in it, I'll do another thin coat because I want to avoid seeing those little dimples where the plates were. And my little spreading plate was dirty and I didn't want to use that because I want to make sure I got a nice clean smooth coat of Bondo, so I'm just gonna use a piece of wood, some foil on it to do the mixing. Okay, let's get going. So I thought I would remove the tape so I could see where my lines are on the Bondo. And I'm just going to feather out these edges to the shoulders of the raised ridge of the belly band and try to get it nice and smooth. I'm going to put another fine layer of Bondo on here just to try to make it perfect and sand it with a higher grit sandpaper just to make sure it's nice and perfect. A lot of times I've seen where there's dimples here where the plates used to be. I want to make sure I got everything nice and flush there, and at these edges before I hit the shoulder get feathered out, and then I'll have a nice smooth surface here that I could leave like this and have it painted the same color as the rest of the trailer, which looks nice, or use a chrome band that's attached with 3M tape going around the whole belly band, which I've seen on other trailers that also looks nice. But I'll make sure that I come back with a video with the finished product so you can see how it turned out. And if you don't want to miss that, make sure you hit the subscribe button right here and the alert bell so you don't miss it when it comes out. But now let's move on to our tip segment.
Now for some cheaper Jeeper tips. This week's tip has to do with those of you out there who wish to use some epoxy resin and fiberglass to make a repair on your trailer. I recommend the West System 105 epoxy resin and the 206 hardener, as it is the slow cure hardener and it'll give you ample time to make your repair.
Hey, so I hope that was interesting. Now let's hear what our subscribers have to say.
And now for subscribers tips. This week's subscriber tip comes from last week's video, Step 1, Fix the hinges on a Trillium trailer restoration. Hey Cheaper Jeeper TV, how about drilling straight through and put some pretty stainless bolts with nice acorn nuts and washers inside? Signed, Brickwall326. Hey Brickwall326, thank you very much. That's a great idea for a permanent fix, and when I get to that point, I'll certainly consider it. Thank you very much. And if any of you have a tip that you'd like to share, make sure you put it in the comments section below, as it may make it in a future episode.
Hey, that's it for this week's episode of Cheaper Jeeper TV. I just wanted to give you a taste of what Stage 1, the exterior part of the restoration of this Trillium trailer to be towed behind my Jeep, is all about. When I'm done, I'll make sure I have a video released to show you the finished product on the exterior, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the alert bell so you'll be notified when it comes out. I'll also do an interior restoration video for those of you who are interested. So until the next time, I'm Dino for Cheaper Jeeper TV. Be well, stay safe, take care.